Yes, we have a few people on, and if you have any questions during this interview, pop them up, and Sean and I will fit those questions in.
Well, welcome, Nuala. We're just so excited to have you here today, and you have such a passion and love for this industry, and you've been in it, for 30 plus years. You've held an array of positions. You've recently kind of repositioned yourself within the industry as a coach and a mentor. You're a John Maxwell certified speaker and trainer. And I love that, you're on a mission to empower the salon industry to live by design, not by default. So let's talk a little bit more about your mission. What exactly does that mean to have people live by design and not by default?
So that's a thanks. So I'm honored to be here with the two of you. So thanks so much for inviting me. So for me, what that means is leveling up the leadership and leveling up the thinking of our industry. So not accepting what has been, but create something that's new. And because a lot of our salon owners, leaders, school owners, they've been in the industry a long time, and people are willing to accept what has always been. And probably the last 7 or 8 years of my career, I've noticed this whole new shift and change where people want independence and they want to belong to something bigger than just the four walls. So that's what I want. It's like I want to get involved in those conversations and find out, what do the people coming out of cosmetology school want, right to what does somebody who's been in our industry 20 years, what do they want? What do they want, and what's that next level for our industry? Or whatever it is, I want to be involved in it, and I want to help people create their life, not just their career, because I think a lot of people want a life and a career, and we're starting to see that. I've had conversations with people that I don't want to work Saturdays, and somebody at my level, I kind of recoil when somebody says that, because I'm like, Saturdays are the fun days. It's when you get to dress up, the music's pumping. That's old school. Right. So it's like, that was my fun time on fun days. So, getting to know what's there is what will work for them. How do they want to earn a living? This is a passion career. It's more and more conversations I'm having. We're so lucky we don't work. We do what we love. How many people don't get that opportunity? So, and I think then sometimes accidentally people fall into the industry, and then they don't know how to then increase their earnings. So a lot of people leave. So that's why I say I want to do it by design. I want to have intelligent conversations with people, about the whole business of the professional beauty industry.
I love that. And, you talk about something that you said that you believe is that every salon needs a heart, and it's the one thing that's never on your P&L, but it's what makes people stay, and it's what makes people grow. To be successful, you have to have your heart in your business, and your business in your heart. So talk a little bit about the importance of culture.
The importance of culture it's everything. So, and that goes from how you answer the phone, to how you employ somebody, to that first greeting, to, how your training education is, how you're fiscally responsible as an employer, making sure that you understand how your business works, from not only the numbers, but also the emotional intelligence. How are you as a leader developing that? And to me, if you don't take care of your health, your wellness, your financial independence in a business, and your employees, that you can't build a culture. So the foundation of building a culture is really important. And that goes to the values that your company works off of. So, if you're hiring somebody at the last minute because you need to fill a spot, whether it be on the front desk or, somebody to help your business, or a stylist, that's not necessarily going to work on your culture. So to me, culture is a long game. It's not a short game. So, that's why it's so important. Are you willing to put in the work? I think so many people want a quick fix or want a quick success, and they're not willing to put in that foundational work. So culture is a huge subject, Sean and Tina. It's like, it doesn't happen overnight. I remember when I worked for Vidal Sassoon, I went into a corporation that had this culture that lived beyond its owner. For like, Vidal had been out of the business, but the culture still existed. So then I didn't understand how important that was. And then when I went to develop my own, the thing that was missing the most was culture. Because we had an assumption of when you work with somebody, you're following their policies, their procedures, you're following their legacy, their history, and then developing that as a young business. Well, I wasn't that young, but I was young getting into the game. But developing that myself, that was the hardest piece for me, was developing that culture. I didn't realize what it took. You know, I thought it was an automatic. I thought people would automatically follow the leader. I thought automatically people felt my vision, right? I may not have declared it as much as I could have. And then I learned over time that you've got to share that vision. You've got to live with passion every day. And you're the person responsible for the energy of your business. And that has so much to do with culture, you know. I hope I've answered your question.
So good, Nuala. You know, your quote reminds me of John Maxwell's new quote in his new book, Change Your World. He said, you have to have a heart for people, but a head for business. And yeah. I know that you do a lot of coaching around both of those realms. So let's talk a little bit about that, because, you know, Sean and I, of course, we have our next level 6-month course, and we do the same. So the first month it's pretty much focused, you know, on their P&L statement, so to speak, because that's kind of your scorecard, right? So talk about, as if you're coaching us, as if we're salon owners that you're coaching, how would you coach us when it comes to the P&Ls? Because I know that's your expertise.
Well, it's funny, Tina, I would never have thought it was my expertise, but it's where my passion is. You know, and that's where I've realized that if you don't know what's coming in and going out, it's simple. You know, you've got to know those. And that's the hardest conversation to have with somebody in the beginning, saying, you know, can you send me your last 3 P&Ls for the last 3 months of the year? So that's how I'd begin. Or, you know, what are we month now? We're into March. So to be, okay, can I have December's, January and February? And a lot of salon owners would be, what's my P&L? You know, they don't meet with their accountant on a regular basis. So sometimes it's understanding the foundational work, or somebody saying, well, I only meet with my accountant once a year and I have to pay taxes. So just teaching people that there's a thing called a cash flow. So teaching them, you know, what their service dollars revenue is coming in, and breaking it down and showing you from retail to, if you have a boutique, if you have a salon, a spa, all that's revenue. So showing them where that belongs on a P&L. And generally I'll walk them through it. And it's about 2 or 3 meetings teaching people their line items. And then, you know, I'll always request, you know, if you have an accountant. If you don't, I'll help you with accountant questions. So I've done that in the past. And asking people, okay, so ask your accountant to send me your P&L with the column on the right-hand side that has the percentages of what each line item means. So really teaching people and taking them by the hand and bringing them through line by line of how all that affects your business. And the G&A is really important, and that's your, you know, your expenses, you know, so like really justifying each expense on that line and asking questions like, do you know what this expense is for? Do you know what? And a lot of times people don't, you know. I'm working with somebody just currently, and they have an amazing accountant. You've got gold here, because the accountant is giving them the numbers. So teaching people even how to find the right accountant, you know, so because that's so important. And developing, that's a relationship. So to me, it's like, I'll always say to people, the best relationship you can have is between your landlord, if you don't own the building, and your accountant. They're going to become your best friends, you know, because they'll help you with those financial decisions. So it's really the basics. There's a great book that I came across last year called Profit First. And I know that you guys also teach on that. And to me, I'd always worked with the profit at the end. And you know, that's why I want to work with people to live by design, Sean, because it's like, I want you to know where your profits come from and how you can manage that. So I'll generally build out a cash flow plan with somebody for 12 months, and we'll do a 12-month projection. And then, you know, we'll look on their past, you know, if they have a little bit of a past, we can go off, but then we'll look at the numbers weekly and see where they're going. So I have a scorecard that they fill out daily, and so they can see where they're heading every day. Because, you know, if you're I can use the analogy like soccer, I'm from Europe, right? So we'll talk about a soccer match. You know, you don't wait till the end to find out where you're at on the score, you know what I mean? So you have to be checking in weekly. And I just worked with somebody and they were just like 2% away from the retail goal. And I called her out. I said, you weren't looking at your numbers if you're only 2% away from your retail goal last month. I said, don't fill out the numbers the 5 minutes before you're meeting with me.
Yeah.
You know, do it daily. So, and then she saw the power in that. So it's like, it's really, really important. I know that from being a salon owner myself, I didn't know my numbers. And that's where my pain and passion came in for it. And I learned I went to school, you know, I went to business school, you know, salon business school. It was like what you guys are doing, teaching people. I went to Neil Dukoff at Strategies. And that was the first thing we dove into, was all those numbers. And it was the most painful, you know, because not knowing what you don't know, and then when you start seeing it, you kind of feel a little silly, but you have this passion and dream. It's like that entrepreneurial seizure, you know, you're a technician and you're like, I can do this. So, you know, learning, I think that's where I love it, when I start seeing the light bulbs go off. You know, it takes about 3 months to really get to know your P&L and your cash flow statement. And, you know, I just got a message from somebody that I'm working with, and they're like, I have profit for the first time since I opened my business. And they sent me a picture of it, and I was sitting on the sofa with my husband. I was like, oh my God, this is what I love. I love when people start seeing the creativity in their numbers. You know, I'm a creative person, and so the P&L was not an easy one for me to learn in the beginning. So if I can help people see how you can be creative with that, that gives me the biggest joy.
I love that you said creativity, because Sean knows that everything has to be put in color. Even my accountant, she's like, Tina, I put it in color for you. It has to be colorful, right? And I love that you just kind of dropped a bomb there, because you said they had, you know, 2% from their goal, you know. So let's talk about that. What does that look like when you're setting up goal planning for that salon owner? So let's talk to all the salon owners on today right now. You know, how can we set up goal planning? What advice do you give?
So I would say, you know, pick your best 3 months and pick your worst 3 months. You know, and then, you know, and I think it's really hard and it's really challenging for salon owners to really project what their earnings are going to be this year. You can only do your best. And so it's like last year wasn't such a good gauge. So I would say pick your best and pick your worst, and then get an average of those. So if you want to do 3 and 3, and then just get an average and put that into, you know, in a simple Excel sheet. You don't have to go crazy, you know. I don't know the tools that you guys have, but I'm assuming you have great tools for salon owners that they can see their numbers. And then just play. This is where nothing is written in stone. Then just play. What would it look like if I was to increase my retail by 10%? So from my average, what would it look like? So play with it, put a number in there. A lot of people are afraid to put a number on an Excel sheet. It's not locked in stone, you know what I mean? You can change it. And then a what if. So I do like a what if exercise. You know, what if you were to get, you know, if you're 60% productive at the moment, what if you were to go 65% productive? So what would that look like? What would you need to do? What would you need to sell? You know, who at the front desk would need to help you? You know, where can we get those business drivers to kind of drive that percentage growth? And then after about a month, you know, we'll play, and then we'll come back and see what happened for that month. And then we'll go through, there's generally 4 or 5 areas, Tina. So we'll go through each area and say, okay, what happened here? You know, what could we have done differently? You know, so what did we project for? So just kind of digging in and seeing what happened. So, and then what if next month we try to drive it a little bit more? So say, for example, gift certificate sales. So gift certificate sales are generally flat in January and February. So February is Valentine's, but are you really projecting those numbers back in October of the year before? So I always like to plan 4 months out. So, you know, divide the year into 3 and plan 4 months out, because I find when you plan every quarter, it happens so quickly. Everything happens so quickly. Like we're already, who can believe it? It's March the 8th of 2021, right? You know, are you 80%, like what are we now? We're into the 8th, so we're into the second week of the month. So what are you? Are you 80% to goal? Are you 60% to goal? You know, so and that's for your year. So we're already going to have the first quarter of the first year. So it's really understanding that, and that's why I like to divide it into 4. So because it gives you a little bit of room to play and to project, because 3 months can fly by so quickly. So that's generally what I do, Tina. I hope I answered your question. I can go off on a tangent, you know?
I love that you use profit first. Can you describe to the listeners exactly what that means?
Yeah, so what that means is, you know, after your service and revenue and your expenses for, generally it's back bar, your expenses for, then putting in a like what would it look like if you were to put 10% aside, or just look at what 10% profit would be, and then all your G&A after that, all your general, administrative and expenses come out after that. Not a lot of people can take that 10% off, but you should see it. And I do believe, and this is something that I really believe with passion, that you have to pay yourself as well. So you have to have yourself in those line items. Even if you don't take it, you've got to know what it looks like. You know what I mean? Then it's your choice. And having that separate account. So if you can, I think a lot of people this last year realized that they didn't have as much in savings as they thought they had for their business. So it's really understanding that profit first is not for you to put in your pocket and, you know, go out to, you know, Bloomingdale's and have a great afternoon, but it's to really project, you know, what would it look like if my business was profitable? And then you decide, am I going to invest that money back in the business? But it's done with a thought process. It's not whatever's left over at the end of the month. So what I loved about them is there's like a 5 envelope process. And so it really helps you divide your money and understand where the money should go, not just putting everything in the bank and hoping at the end of the month that you have something left over, number 1, to pay yourself, and number 2, to have some forced savings for future projections. And I think a lot of salon owners now, it's like having at least 6 months in savings. You know, that's above and beyond what you're going to be paying it. So that's where the profit first model comes in too. It's like really looking at that number. I understand realistically a lot of salon owners can't possibly take it out now, or take it out for a little while when you open a business. And for salon owners that have been in business in a long time, that's still in business, I applaud you. I think it's amazing. But these are the methods that you could, perhaps you could try and start adopting and start looking at your numbers slightly different, you know? I hope I did it justice.
I love that you said 6 months in savings. And
yeah.
Let's talk about that. How many salons have you watched closed over COVID, or looking to possibly close this year because of not having 6 months in savings, or not being able to get PPP money to kind of, you know, sustain themselves? So yeah. What have you noticed?
I've noticed a couple of things. Definitely not having enough money, not being able to get that PPP money, not having the support. I think some great people in our industry have helped so much with trying to work with salon owners and educate them on how to make those applications. You know, some people are lucky they have a team, and some people had to do it on their own. So that was really challenging. And I think the third thing for me was leadership. You know, a lot of salon owners, their employees didn't want to come back, and there was a reason why. You know, it wasn't, and the salon owners that didn't lose 100% of their team, you got to look at what they were doing differently. You know what I mean? So it's, to me, there was 3 things that really got exposed during COVID. So it was not having enough money in the bank. Obviously, the worst thing is not getting that PPP. You're entitled to it. If you're paying your taxes and you're paying your payroll taxes, you are entitled to it. So I think that was a big letdown on the government. And I think a lot of people in our industry, you know, like the BBR, we love those because they were just constantly having people in and teaching you and educating you. And I think a lot of salon owners kind of hid and didn't go and find the help to fill it out, you know. And then, as I said, the leadership piece, you know, really working on that leadership and communication with your team. So important.
Yeah. Well, that PPP money is really hard to apply for. Sean knows because he and I backed off, and even my husband, who's been a lawyer for 30 plus years, he was struggling with it. He had to utilize, my millennial son-in-law that understood it, who's a financial advisor. So thank God for him because he saved us for sure. And we've been so blessed, Nuala, because our salons did really, really well. A few of our schools have struggled with this. And so thank God for the PPP money. But we did notice that with the salons, and we were just so elated as we watched it. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. So the salons that have sustained and will continue to have sustainability, it's interesting. I love every time I go to different towns and different states, I always love to go to different salons to see, how they run things. And so I saw this hairstylist this morning, and so she was, running around with a chicken with her head cut off, and, a little older, she's probably a little bit older than me. And she had a couple clients with color sitting on, and she was all frazzled because I was coming in and, getting my hair done. I had an appointment, and she's freaking out. And so anyways, I wait about 15 minutes, right? And she kind of slams me around the bowl, I felt like I was beat up. And I said, do you own this salon? And she didn't ask me anything about myself. So she had no idea what I did. And I find it very interesting because I go to these salons all over the country, and their team members aren't taught to even ask their guests, what do they do for a living or anything on that realm. And no one ever asked me, Nuala. So I don't tell them, And so she's beating me up, and she blow dries my hair. And I said, so do you have any stylists that work for you? And she said, no. She said, yeah, I do, but they never show up to work. She says, I don't understand this next generation of hairdressers. No one shows up to work. And I'm thinking, I would never work for you. First of all, you're not up on the newest trends, and you do a lousy shampoo. Like, I'm beat up. Like, I think I have bruises on the back of my head, and she had long nails that kind of scratched my, scalp. And so, here's the salon, and the Marriott recommended them, and so let's talk about this whole situation of I can't find nobody and I got nobody, they ain't gonna work.
Well, you know what they say, the fish stinks from the head down. So I think that's the syndrome. It's not, you're not awake. If you're that type of salon owner, you're not awake. There's nothing better than this new generation. I love them. Love working with 20 to 30-year-olds. And, there's two different generations at the moment that we have, actually 3 or 4 now, because I know I just, stopped working in the salon recently, but, your generation, there's generation owners that are the same age as me. And then you've got your 30 somethings and your 20 somethings. So we've got a couple of different generations at the moment. And there's nothing, I think there's nothing better than this new generation that's coming in. They want to belong to something bigger than themselves. So if you're not giving people, again, it's that listening, it's that, finding out, harvesting the information from them. But if you're not awoke, if you're not woke up and you're not leading your business, you're being a technician, this is what you're going to get. If you're not going to invest in your own personal development and growth and business development, because you're a hairdresser doesn't mean you're a good business owner. So you have to go to business school. If you put your hand up and say, I want to own a salon, you've got to take on that responsibility. You've got to, read the books, go to the masters, see who's doing well, get a mentor, get a coach. Business coaching is so, so important when you own a salon. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, when you're a technician and you open a business, whether it's one chair or whether you open a salon, you've also become the HR person, you've become the payroll person, you've become ADP, you've become your marketing person, you've become stock boy, you've become, it's like there's all these hats that you suddenly started to wear. And if you don't realize that, you either have to hire somebody super, super smart that can take off some of those areas that you don't like to do, which I've always said is, somebody at your front desk. Always hire somebody at your front desk can help you with the areas that you don't like to do. And then you just continue to double down on the best area for you. But if you're not there yet. Like Tina, we're so lucky, the people we talk to and hang out with. I think, you know, you probably got so shocked when you went in there that that's still happening in 2021 in our industry. And I think that's where the shame is, you know, it's like we don't educate. You know, you guys have a cosmetology school, and I have to tell you, and I had my salon I had a salon in Fort Lee, New Jersey for nearly 10 years. My favorite people that came to work for me were coming from the Paul Mitchell School, because they taught them everything about the business. They didn't just teach them how to do hair. They taught them, you know, people skills, retail education. So if you're not aware that that's everything that you need out of an employee and out of yourself, you know, it's really, it's so important. We're so lucky that we get to hang out with people that are really in this industry and playing a big game. So it's so heartbreaking when you hear that you got beaten up at the shampoo bowl by somebody with long nails, you know, and they weren't interested in you, you know, that you saw their chaos. You know, it's like, it disheartens me, you know, that's still happening. You know, there's so much technology now. Years ago when I was learning, I had to go to Centerbrook, Connecticut, had to take 4 days off of, you know, out of my salon and go to school. How many schools have we gone to in this last year? None. Everything's been virtual. There's so much information online. You guys are coaching salon owners. Are you leaving where you're working? No, you're doing it all online, right?
Exactly.
No, it's so easy. You know, you can be in your PJs and get a great education. You know, there's no excuse. And I think there's no excuse, you know.
Talking about,
there's so much free stuff.
Yeah, so much.
You've kind of hit on it a couple times about the difference, old school, new school, not wanting to work Saturdays. Let's just say that old school salon owner or leader, what are some things that you're seeing that they personally would need to shift in their leadership to lead that younger generation? Because I think the younger generation, I love that you love them, because most people, when you hear the words like lazy come out, like they don't want to do this, and that's really not it. It's about understanding where they're at. So kind of talk a little bit about that, give some advice on how we can, you know, best support that younger generation as an older generation.
I think you have to learn to become a coach. You have to learn to be a coach, and you've got to learn how to, you know, find out what they really, really want, you know, and it's very easy. They're very open. So, and I think you've got to develop your coaching skills as a leader. So leader is not a badge. We know that, you know, leadership is not a position, you know, it's like, it's how you're managing. And that's another word. I think people think they're managers, and they're not managers. They're leaders and they're coaches. And I'm really, really seeing that, you know, you've got to really get down into the ditches with them. You don't become their friend, you become their inspiration, and you become somebody who is really an advocate for their future. You know, if you're not an advocate if you're not in advocacy of their future, you know, you've got to want them to be better than you. So that's, to me, that's it. Learn about them, read about, like, I'm big into, you know, I forget the name of that book. Oh, it was somebody, like, there's so many books about how to communicate with Gen Y and Z. You know, it's like, it's just learn about them. They're wonderful people. They're out there wanting to save the planet. You know what I mean? They're, you know, although I have my thoughts on that as well. I used to love that. They're like all about saving the planet and eco-friendly and farm-fed and no this, no that. And then you'd walk into the staff room and all the garbage is in the one can. You know what I mean? I'm like, we got all these garbages for you guys, you know? But you got to still support them, right? And that's what it is. It's like, you know, John Maxwell says, you know, we're doing a great mastermind at the moment of Today Matters. And John Maxwell, you know, we're John Maxwell coaches, the three of us here, we're very lucky. And he said, put a 10 on everybody's head. Sean, if you're employing these people and you're already always listening, and the thinking is that you're thinking that before you even give them a job, you know, you need to put a 10 on their head. And then level up your leadership, level up your coaching skills. You know, my favorite day was always the day we had a new employee, because that was the day that we could shine. Whatever, you know, whatever breakdowns we had before with this next employee, you can improve it. You have a clean slate, you know, and you only have to be 1 week ahead of them. You don't have to be years ahead of them, you know, because as you're learning, if you're open to it, if you're open to becoming a coach and a leader, you know, you can't just be a great skilled hairdresser as a leader anymore. It doesn't work. And it hasn't worked for a long time. You know, I think we've pretended that it worked for a long time, but it didn't, you know? So that,
True. I think that's kind of what started the whole cycle of people wanting to be independent and independently employed, you know, and why shouldn't they be? You know, they want to be entrepreneurs. This next generation was raised of, hey, you could be an entrepreneur, you know, you could have more freedom. And, you know, we'll have students that come to our schools, Nuala, and it's about 90% of the students raise their hand that they want to be, you know, independently contracted or independently employed. They want to own their own business. They don't truly understand, because when I say to them, I'll say, okay, well, do you want to be a solopreneur or a business owner? So a solopreneur is someone that only can make money when they do the work, but a business owner can make money while you're sitting on the beach. So which would you rather do? And I would say 89% of them say they want to be a business owner then, when you put it that way.
yeah.
And so until they know, and so it's interesting, but you know, we're the ones, you know, look in the mirror, the law of the mirror, we're the ones who threw these hairdressers into these solo salon suites, you know, and these, you know, really incredible business owners are saying, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them, and I'm going to make
Yeah.
some money off of this and make this happen. But where do you see kind of some of the pros and the cons with that, Nuala? Because I know both you and I are not against independently contracted salon suites at all, by any means, but we do see where it's a little bit overused right now. And I think it's lack of education. And for my part, it's really Sean and I really spending time with our salon leaders and our salon partners of training them on salon business. You know, this is how you can make this type of money. And I can't, you know, I think there's such a roadblock in the independent contracted salons or salon suites, you know, of this is, you could probably make about this much, but if you want to be here and if you truly want freedom, making money on the beach, you know, we talk about freedom, then you've got to have people working underneath you. You can't work by yourself. And that's what this looks like. So that's where I kind of see the missing link. What do you see as the missing link here? And what are you doing about it to educate and train salon owners in this realm?
So I think you had somebody on your podcast a few weeks ago, and she had some great statistics coming out of cosmetology schools. And that's it. It's like, you've got to listen to hearing what they're saying. So if somebody wants to be an independent contractor, making sure that they have a realistic view on what that means. So, you know, as I said, wearing all those hats. If you want to be a salon suite owner, so I think you've got a lot more freedom in that. That's where you can be on the beach as a salon suite owner, you know, renting out your chairs to somebody else, making sure, you know your numbers. It's so important. But I hope I get this answer for you properly, because I think I'm still in the process of understanding these models. So you have your hybrid salons. So you've got salons that are doing commission and, you know, hybrid renting out chairs. So making sure that, you know, they're following, they have to understand that there's laws and policies and procedures and having that type of business. And, you know, what an independent contract business is. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to educate people to know the difference. I'm working with somebody at the moment that's going from being a salon owner to a suite owner. And she has all these policies and procedures in place. And I was like, you're still a salon owner. You're not a landlord. You're not thinking like a landlord. You know, so it's in that thinking, you know, she wants them to wear a uniform and come in on time. I'm like, whoa.
No.
Yeah, you got, this is, and then, you know, I won't work with people that don't want to work also within the parameters of, you know, the law. You know, it's like, it's really, really important that they know that. So I think it's still a process, Tina, but I think where people need to understand is, you know, you want freedom, or do you want freedom, or do you want something that you have to build and grow? So I you know, they have to invest in their education even more. You know, to me, a lot of salon owners, and even myself as a manager over the last, you know, 10 years. And then as a salon owner, I always loved when I had my own salon, the person that wanted to be an entrepreneur, because I knew they had what it takes to be a great hairdresser behind the chair. If you've got that entrepreneurial thinking that I want to have my own business, I worked and coached them at that level. You know, and we did like open book management. So teaching people where the numbers came in and the numbers went out, very in the simplistic form, just to make people understand. And my team, I remember, came up with some creative, great ideas on how we could reduce our G&A. So I think, I don't want to go off subject too much, Tina, but I think that's what it is. Still in the process of trying to understand and trying to really put a thought process in place to help salon owners and help technicians that want to open their own business. You know, I've known a group of successful people that went off all to be independent, but they all worked together in a place, and they're all independent, but they all supported each other. You know, there's so many different ways of doing it, but I think a lot of people go into it in the not knowing, you know. And you know, I work with somebody at the moment, and they're like, you know, they base their numbers off what they were making behind the chair, and they thought that they could manage their business. And I think that's what happened. So it's really teaching people, you guys at the school level can really help, but then if you've got a salon owner that's not interested in really developing that person, because I forget the person's name, Sean, you may remember them, the person that was on your podcast a few weeks ago, and she did all these statistics, like they want to come and work and get trained, which is what we've been doing for so many years. And we used to call it the train them and leave them, but we weren't addressing the issue. You know, we knew that the stylists are only going to come in for a few years, and the ones that wanted to grow would leave because they can't grow in your space, you know? So addressing that is really, really important. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and I like the question that you said, is it freedom? But I would add on, or is it really control that you want? You know, of your own, you know, destiny, so to speak, you know. And so what we're watching is actually, I've been working with someone who actually trains booth renters and salon suite owners, because she said many of them want to get out of that realm because they've noticed a lot of their clients don't want to be in that type of atmosphere. And, you know, because it's, you know, just them, you know, and a suite, they want to be back into, you know, a busy working salon, so to speak. And so she's really kind of coaching them of how they can become a salon owner. So she's actually almost like Profit First, re-engineering, you know, the profit and loss statement, so to speak, the income statements. She's re-engineering how to go back from salon suite to being a salon owner. So really training on, you know, what that looks like. And so let's talk about those models, because, you know, I know there's a bunch of different schools of thought here, Nuala, and I know that, you know, we're all coaches here and we all give our different, you know, opinions on this matter, but we're watching a lot of salons say, okay, this is great. I want to have like some sort of career path for my hairstylist. I understand I need to give them a career path. So I'm going to give this opportunity of hourly versus commission if I'm following Department of Labor laws, right? Federal, right? This is pretty much in every state, right? And so if I'm following that, if they're in the building, I'm paying them, whether it's I'm paying them hourly or I'm giving them commission. California, the law states it's hourly plus commission, right? Or you just do a straight hourly, which I think that's making a comeback. And I want to talk about that too. And then of course you've got the hybrid, where people could career path, move up and rent a chair. You know, where is it that people are thinking that is a career path? I guess that would be my question. You know, if they're making commission and renting a chair, has anyone ever done any of the work of an actual profit and loss statement that they can actually make more as a chair renter versus working within, you know, the strides of a salon, of them providing assistance for them? Because now wouldn't they have to pay for their own assistance? Because if you're following Department of Labor and I'm a salon owner, landlord, I mean, my God, last I looked, my landlord does not provide me an administrative assistant, right? So let's talk reality here. you know, like you're saying, if you're doing it right and following in the confines of the law, Department of Labor, not listening to your accountant
Right.
or your uncle lawyer.
Right.
What's your thought process on
So
that?
yeah, I think that's actually a great concept because I am working with somebody who's a salon suite owner, and I'm, showing her numbers based off of that, and how she can grow her people. But I do think a lot of this is interesting, and statistic I read that this new generation that's coming into our industry wants to have a steady paycheck. So I think team-based pay, Neil Dukoff teaches team-based pay really well, based off of, it's not an hourly rate, but you do get an hourly pay, but there's a ton. You have to be really, really good in your coaching and leadership to make that system work, because it's not just a system you put in place. You've got to really, really create a team behind that. So it's like making sure that you allow people to see it. It shouldn't be a secret. You know what I mean? So if you get to this level, the expectation is, you have a career path. So the expectation is, attitude, timekeeping, everything that goes into creating that service. I think it's really challenging. I know some people have done it really well based off of a commission model, holding people accountable to that. So it's like you can only hold people accountable to a certain amount. You can't hold anybody accountable when they're renting your space. But for a commission employee and hourly, so legally in the state of New York, and that's where I worked, you have to pay people hourly or commission, whichever is greater. And if they're not bringing in the commission, if they're not making greater than your hourly rate, then that's a huge opportunity for your coaching. So it's letting them see that they will never. I didn't want to go to cosmetology school to earn minimum wage. When I was making when I was being paid as an assistant, it was like $6 or $5.95 an hour. But I knew that making commission, I had more of it was really up to me. But then the more I developed and understood, it was really up to the brand, you know what I mean, as well. I had a huge piece to play in it, but so did the brand, you know what I mean? Like, so the brand, making sure that you're hiring the right people to support that. And that's what you will not get when you're in a suite of salons. You won't get that support. You'll get that on a team-based pay or an hourly rate business, but you will be an hourly rate employee. So you have to contribute to the team if you're getting paid hourly. It's not just what you do behind the chair. Mm-hmm. And if you're a commission employee, it can be really challenging to create that team, because they're like, well, if I'm not with a client, why will I help? And that's where really good coaching and leadership comes in, because you can get more if your team is doing more. I love creating bonus structures for people. So, there should be a team bonus and an individual bonus, So the individual bonus, you can show somebody what they can make if they continue to grow and develop their skill sets, develop their communication skills, develop their retail sales, develop their upsell sales, and also maybe help their teammates. So if you've got a waiting list, I think there's nothing worse than a waiting list. I know a lot of salon owners don't have it people don't have it at this moment in COVID, but it's being inefficient because you've got somebody in your team that can help that client. It's really getting the clients in and maximizing the hours that you have for sale. So there's so much education that goes into it, Tina, but looking to see what your P&L would look like, I think that would be great. I think a lot of people wouldn't go into their own business if they could really see what they wouldn't if they could. Sean's laughing. I love it, Sean. You know it, they wouldn't, so it's like, why do they spend so much time on their logo, their Instagram page, their Facebook page, their business cards, and the paint on their wall, and they don't know their business numbers? They don't know what they're getting into, So,
I said open book management. Let's talk more about that, because let's talk to the salon owners right now. How can I open up my book and start showing all of my salon leaders the reality of the business? What does that look like? Because I think sometimes they are a little nervous about sharing all of their numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because of not understanding, like, it looks like gross, gross, I make $5 million or so, that she must be rich. So that's why,
Yeah.
but they're not really understanding net, because it has to go into like some sort of training. So what
Yeah.
advice do you give,
Yeah.
Nuala?
I would do it only with your salon leaders. It's like, it's not for everybody on your team to know your business numbers, and get comfortable with them yourself first before you even start bringing anybody into that. So I would keep it so simple, like a one sheet Post-it note, handwriting it out. Service, retail, gift certificate sales, if you have a boutique, salon or spa, and then show people where all those revenue numbers are coming in. So how's the money coming into your business? And then just very simple payroll for all the services that are provided, just one lump sum. And then letting them know if you've got support team. So if you have front desk, if you have assistants, showing them that number. So you have a service provider's number, which is your commission employees or your employees on hourly or however you're paying them. And then you have the support team. So whatever it costs to get those front desk people in, your assistants, and just showing those in lump sizes. And then go through a G&A, keep it really simple. So you have then costs to manage your payroll, you have rent, you have phone, you've got web, you've got social media. So just giving them some of the expenses. And how I like to do this exercise when I'm working in a team environment is getting them to tell me what they think the expenses are, right? So it's like, then they start thinking, and they're like, ooh, out of $100, this all has to come out of it. So they start seeing it. So I would keep it so simple. You don't know, you need to show them your real P&L for now, but let them know that eventually over time, you will disclose that to them, because there's something really important with transparency. It's like, because if you're not going to be 100% transparent with your team leaders, I was in a job where I was only held accountability for the top line. So it's like, okay, I was held accountable for the top line, but I couldn't even ask about the bottom line. That didn't give me a lot of power or freedom, because I could see expenses that were being spent, or people that were, taken off on a Saturday to go travel, and that affected my revenue in the top line, but I didn't have any voice on the bottom line. I didn't have any voice as a leader, and that wasn't very powerful. So you've got to, if you're going to expose people to it, you've got to be open to have full transparency. And you are entitled as a salon owner, leader, whether you work in the business, to pull a paycheck from that. And over time, you can show, you don't have to show them the amount, but you can show them that the fearless leader has a line item here, because there isn't a line item. And this is why I say this about your P&L. There's no line item for the blood, sweat, and tears and the responsibility that it takes for a salon owner, a school owner, any type of leader in a business. You don't see that on your P&L. So it's like letting people understand, the hours that you're not, as a salon owner, if you're a technician, that you're not on the floor, you're not getting your nails done. You're working on the business, not in it. You know what I mean? Like showing them that, okay, if you are on the beach eating bonbons and getting nice drinks served to you with a great umbrella, you did it because you've put in the blood, sweat, and tears. You know what I mean? So they won't regret it when you are there, or there won't be any animosity. So it's full transparency, I think, is really, really important. And you will be surprised, because you get more thinking when you bring more people into the conversation. As a salon leader, if you've got some great leaders, let them lead, let them give you their ideas, listen to what they're saying. And the more you educate them 100%, don't educate them 50%, because that's where it's dangerous. People then start making up their own ideas. So you've got to really, if you're going to do this, open book management is not for wimps.
Yeah.
But you've got to have full transparency, and you are entitled to have a profit. You are entitled to have a paycheck,
Absolutely. And I think it's your job to explain to your team, hey, this is a business, not a country club here.
Yeah.
nonprofit. This is for-profit business. And, hey, I want to train you how to do this as well. And, that's your career path, in our companies, we're going to train you so that you can be a business owner too. And hopefully it's with me. But if you decide that it's not with me someday, I still want to bless you.
Yes.
Let's talk about that because, John Maxwell, he states that in order to be a great leader, you have to first be a great follower.
Yeah.
And it's always important to leave a place better than you found it, right? Because however you leave a place is how you're going to enter a place. Why do you think that second marriages also end in divorce? And that's because most people leave a marriage horrible and then enter into the next marriage, same as a job,
Yeah.
And so let's kind of talk about that because I think there's a lot of maybe just miseducation to salon owners. And I know for me, Nuala, Sean and I are actually working on a system of a written system. This is how we would like you to leave. We actually even sent out a mass email to all of our team leaders and team players in our schools because we wanted to give them step by step. This is how to leave. And please don't give us 2 weeks because there's no such thing as we can replace you in 2 weeks. You're way too valuable to us. But we want you to be with us forever, but we're realistic. You may decide that you want to move on to something else. But we want to be there to support you. Like, let us bless you in your next endeavor. I feel like that's my job as a business.
Healthy.
Yeah, it's very healthy.
So healthy.
Can't be offended. Trust me, I've worked through my own offenses, my own unforgiveness issues over the years. I learned the hard way because I didn't do it that way. So this is my new improved Tina way, right? Yeah. So talk about that and how you see that, because I know that you've always left places better than you found them, Nuala. And so how did you do that, A? And then B, how do you coach salon leaders to do this as well as salon stylists?
So let's start off with, so how do you leave? So in a couple of my positions that I had was bringing solutions to leadership. So if you're bringing solutions and things aren't changing, John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid, right? So it's like, you're kind of outgrowing where you're at. So it's like not just deciding, but with conversation, communication, and then if nothing's changing, work towards something. So you don't ever leave anything, as you said, Tina. Then I'm going to skip down to the stylists that are there, that are, what they do is, and this is my experience, and this is what I've wanted. So I think it's so healthy what you guys are doing. I have a couple of friends that did this many years ago. So teaching people how to leave. So having those, when to have the conversation, number one, and who to have the conversation with. And I think a lot of young stylists and spa and massage therapists and estheticians, they'll talk to their peers before they'll talk to their leaders. So they get peer involvement. So they get the person who has maybe something that they're not happy with, and then they'll come up with this whole, I've often said, who did you talk to make this decision? Because the last time we spoke, everything was going well. And what happened? Where did I let you down that you felt like you couldn't talk to me? And I've always tried to have 3 or 4 leaders in place so that they have somebody that they can go to, so that they can have a conversation, or somebody can take them out for coffee that knows that's a little bit further down the road than they are. Because a lot of times they'll go to their peers for their future advice, of where they're going to take their career, as opposed to maybe picking somebody else out that gives them a little bit of advice that's further down the road than them. So, and then for the other one, it's like with salon owners, that's it. Have more people than you need to have conversations with your team, because they may not come to you. You know, they may go to somebody who's a little bit above them in level and experience, and maybe being with them. Make it that there's those spots that you can have conversations, or take your team out for coffee. It doesn't have to be around drinks, or, you know, going to when we can, hopefully when we can all go out. I know in Florida you guys can go out, but, you know, having those events a couple of times a year where the walls are down, the barriers are down, where you can have these conversations. And in one-on-ones, it doesn't have to be all about the numbers, you know, really getting to know them and getting to know what they want. So giving people points of opportunity to have a real conversation and not be afraid to talk about it, you know. So by what you guys are doing, I think is genius, putting it up front. Because when you put it up front, when we say we have an open door policy, do you really have an open door policy where you can listen to people? You know, that's why I find a lot of people will put the policies and procedures in place and the mission statement and the values, but are you really living them? You know, you're really breaking down your values, and the first quarter of the year taking care of one value, the next quarter taking care of another value. Are we really leading our companies through what we said? I know I didn't do it. I had the shiny value system, the mission statement, the one-page business plan, but then you got busy. But that's where the foundational work comes in your business. If you really, really stick to what you say you want as a salon leader and owner, and the fact that you guys are putting it out front, so the conversation will never be awkward. So you're allowed to talk about it. It is okay to say, hey, I'm thinking of maybe cutting down Saturdays, or I want to work in, you know, Austin 6 months and I want to work here 6 months. How can I make that happen? So letting them dream with you, and you know, let them dream and let them grow. And as you said, it's best if they grow with you. You know, McDonald's don't hire, you know, genetically altered teenagers, they train them. So it's like training your people to know how to leave, I think is really brave, and I think very, very powerful.
It really is.
I commend you guys for that.
Yeah. Thank you. And you know, we're not completely there yet, but we're in the process of training. And so I wanted to hear, you know, your takeaway on that. So first, I want to thank all of the salons for being a part of this. And Nuala, I can't thank you enough. And I will give Sean the last question to ask you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nuala, for hanging out with us. You know, we talked about foundation and transparency and values, accountability, and, you know, what open book management looks like. But looking back on 2020, what is that leadership lesson that you learned through 2020?
Oh my gosh, a great question. I think transparency. You know, leaders that aren't transparent with their teams, I think that, to me, that's anybody who has made it successful is because they were open with their team and they were available. So it's like, you know, and they really could feel their pain. They had that empathy, they had that emotional intelligence where they could empathize with where everybody was at. So to me, you know, that was the biggest thing, to be transparent with your team, you know. And I think that's all I could say, because when I look back, I'm like, the people that I know are successful really laid it on the table for their team. They let them know exactly where they were, and you know, and they didn't hide anything, you know, and they didn't pretend that everything was okay. You know, they were in the fight with them. So, you know, I think that's what it is. Like, lead, you know, they say lead from the front, but you've got to push from behind. And I think, you know, when leaders were open with their team and really in it with them, it was so, you know, that's what I learned last year. It's okay to be transparent.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And where can people find you?
Basically at Empower the Salon Leaders is where I hang out mostly with my friend Tina. And we have a Facebook group called Empower the Salon Leaders. We're there every Monday. We go live and we run masterminds through that group. And then it's Nuala Guildea at my social media on Instagram or Facebook. My name is my name. I don't have my business name. I think that's my name, my business name. And yeah, so that's it. Nuala Guildea at me.com is my email. And yeah, I'm easy to be found. I'm around. Wherever you see Tina or Sean, I'll be following.
Well, thank you so much and have an awesome day, everybody.
Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you, Nuala.